in person. This is your chance to evaluate him on a personal basis. He's going to be at the Embassy Suites. That's right on the river downtown. And at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Saturday. And that's got a town hall meeting with Ron Paul tomorrow. Is there a huge admission charge for this, or just anybody who just wants to show up?
It's under $1,000.
Okay.
Like zero.
There is a chapter I've been reading a book called Currency Wars by James Rickards. I'm going to interview him in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. He's working the same side of the street as you are as far as honest currency is concerned. He predicts there's going to be a currency collapse. He says we're in the middle of a currency war, and we're losing it because of these derivatives and the fake money that we've been engaged in. And he said this: when the dollar collapses, the dollar-denominated markets will collapse too. That means Obama will have to take to the airwaves and announce a radical plan to save the dollar from complete collapse. He says this new plan may even involve a return to the gold standard. And if gold is used, it will be dramatically higher price in order to support the bloated money supply with the fixed quantity of gold available. Americans who had invested in gold earlier will be then confronted with a 90% windfall profits tax on their newfound wealth imposed in the name of fairness. That has this stink of plausibility about it, Dr. Paul.
Isn't that interesting? They won't confiscate our gold, but they will just tax our gold so we don't have any value left to it.
Now, that's speculation on his part, but it sounds like something that the reason why he thinks that this is likely is because they've done it before, right, over and over and over again.
Well, they actually literally took the gold in the 30s, but I think today it's not likely they will actually come to your house and say, turn over the gold, but they're going to very much regulated, the sales. I mean, if you have a gold coin and you want to go and pick up your couple $1,000s, it won't be easy. You'll have to fill out forms and say, when did you get it and how much did you pay for it, and fill out a 1099, and this is the kind of thing that will happen. But if you have total chaos,
if you let them do that.
No, well, what I want to do is absolutely make it clear that it's legal to use gold and silver as money. See, my position is you don't close the Fed in one day. You give it competition. You legalize gold and silver, take off sales taxes and capital gains taxes, and let gold and silver circulate, and let the market decide. If people love the Federal Reserve note, let them have it. But get in place a parallel currency, and I think that would be a transition that would be less chaotic.
But one technical question: the FDIC doesn't want these deliveries. Doesn't want the banking institution to be, sucking up all this bad debt. Doesn't like it when Bank of America does it, and other institutions are dumping their derivatives into normal deposits that are now going to be insured. And they said, well, we don't have any power to say no. And the bank said, well, we don't need your permission. Is that true? And is there something you guys can do?
I mean, a sensible person at the FDIC would know that they have no money either. They would have peanuts compared to what they need. You were talking a little while ago in the trillions and trillions. But that's why you have to have the Federal Reserve acting in secrecy with no permission and no rules. So the bank is in trouble, and they need capital. They need liquidity. And the Fed has no limits whatsoever, and they don't have to reveal to us what they're doing. So they will provide the liquidity if it's into the banking institution. So
these guys make Bernie Madoff look like the guy who steals your lunch money.
I'm sure you're familiar with the book The Law by Bastiat. Yes. Bastiat says the government shouldn't be able to do anything you and I can't do. But you're right. When Madoff does it, he goes to prison. And somebody tried gold and silver as legal tender, and he went to prison, and they stole all his gold and silver.
Yes.
So why do we allow our governments to do this? This is what I think is so bizarre.
Is it because it's so technical, people don't understand this until it already hits the fan?
Yeah, they think I don't own any gold coins, so why bother with it? And
it only affects somebody else.
It's somebody else, and we'll worry about that some other day.
How close are we to that other day?
Every day, one day closer. That's what I'm sure of. No, that's the. Are you familiar with Jim Grant? Jim Grant is a very astute Wall Streeter, Austrian economist, and they asked him once, "When is this crisis going to hit?" Because we always get asked that question. But the truth is I don't know. Nobody knows. But it could be tomorrow. It could be 5 years from now. But Jim Grant was funny because the real crisis started to build in 1971 with the breakdown of Bretton Woods, and he said, "Well, it's coming in 1978. Otherwise, he expected it a long time ago. But the bubble has just gotten so huge, the foundation is just rotted away. So we're just teetering on this collapsing. But I cannot conceive of it lasting for 5 years. And it could be weeks, it could be months away. But there's no justification for it to be sustained. And, even those who disagree with us totally and completely know that it's coming as well. And I'm talking about the people at the United Nations and at the IMF and the World Bank. They all know that's coming. They are talking about a new currency too, but they want to establish the worldwide fiat currency to replace the dollar. Of course, we want to argue the case for national sovereignty and a sound, honest currency such as gold.
Do you think there is a cynical part of this where they're doing this in order to get to that?
Well, there's some people who believe that, and I think about it, but since I don't have proof of how their minds work, but I don't think my guess would be they don't do it deliberately, but their policies lead to it, and once they see it coming, then they line themselves up in the right place to pick up the pieces and redirect the replacement rather than allowing us who believe in the free market and sound money in our Constitution. They don't want us to win.
This is Tyler. You're talking with Congressman Ron Paul. Good morning.
Yes, I was wondering when I could pick up my registered Libertarian voter's card.
I think he's asking you about a third-party run if you don't get the Republican nomination. Is that a possibility?
Well, I'm planning on winning the primary, so why should I have an alternative course? We haven't had the Iowa caucuses yet.
Yeah, but I think you need to separate yourself from these Republicans. I don't think that
well,
does you any justice.
I think morally and intellectually you have a point, but politically the point is there's only one party in this country. They essentially endorse both ideas on foreign policy and monetary policy and an entitlement system. And also, if you are outside those two parties, which is essentially one, you don't get into debates, you don't get any coverage, you can't get on ballots because they've made it difficult, made it virtually impossible. You spend most of your time trying to get on ballots. So, we send troops overseas promoting democracy, forcing them to have elections. Then they do, and we won't recognize the person who wins if we don't like them. At the same time, we have a strong democratic shortcomings in this country if you want competition. There's it's very difficult to have true competition here politically.
This is Sherry. Good morning, Sherry. You're talking with Congressman Paul.
Hi.
Hi there.
I'm wondering about executive order. A lot of presidents have used it. This president has really used it. Some of the candidates say they will use it. Is it constitutional, and how did it get started?
Great question.
Executive orders. Executive orders are legal if the president has a proper authority to do such things as run the military. So the president has the authority to issue an executive order and saying this is what you do, you move troops here and there and give direction. But he has no authority to write law out of the clear blue. And
or make signing statements.
Yeah, and signing statements are just excluding those provisions in the law that the Congress passed. It's sort of taking a line item veto and using it, which is illegal. So the signing statements as well as the line item veto or executive orders, they're illegal. But in many ways, all regulations are a form of that because that means the executive branch, every time they write a regulation, they're writing a law. And they're not supposed to write law. The courts aren't supposed to write law, and the executive branch is not supposed to. Congress could override all those regulations, and yet they don't. But what I promise as president is I am not going to expand the size of the Federal Register. I would like to be the first president ever to shrink the size of the Federal Register and change the direction in which this country is going.
A brief timeout, last one with our in-studio guest, Congressman Ron Paul. Dr. Paul is our in-studio person that we get a chance to, as Iowans, ask a bunch of questions. We found out during the previous segment that as we got to know another candidate, that his opinions are a little bit more nuanced than we were hoping for. In this case, we get an extended conversation with Dr. Paul, and we find out what makes him tick. You're part of the process. Join us at 284-1040 or 800-469-4295 in a moment. Lots of folks here would like to be a part of this conversation with our guest, Dr. Ron Paul, who's running for the presidency. This is Harry. Good morning, Harry.
Hey, there's been a lot of press, been a lot of commercials lately on the popular vote versus the Electoral College, and just wanted to kind of see where Ron Paul stood on that. What that actually would mean to lower population states like Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota.
Good question. They're running commercials here in Iowa saying, hey, we ought to get the winner of the popular vote should take it all. Winner take all. We should get rid of the Electoral College system.
I would keep the Electoral College, because that was one of the ways they got the colonies to come together, because the smaller ones didn't want to be engulfed. A small state could be maybe 10 small states could be engulfed by New York City. No, I don't think so. Matter of fact, I don't even like the 17th Amendment. The 17th Amendment recognizes that the senators are appointed and elected by the state legislatures to go to protect the state interest. But now that nobody seems to care much about the state's interest and the state's rights issue, that we just have turned that into a popular vote now. No, I think it's very important to keep an Electoral College.
Thank you for your question, Harry. Appreciate it. This is Mark. Good morning, Mark.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, you have a question for our guest. Go ahead.
Well, I guess it really wasn't a question. It's just kind of an overview of, like, the banking industry. I think, years ago, you went to the bank to borrow money or, whatever. You sat there with the owner of the bank or somebody that the, person owning the bank, put in that position.
It was personal.
And, yeah, it's more of a personal deal. He knew what was going on in the area and stuff. Now they've just got a bunch of young hot shots out of college running smart banks.
All right, so excellent point, Mark. So what's the difference between what we've been talking about, derivatives and all these huge things, in the local banker?
Well, it sort of raises this question of, could any of this be deliberate? Because every time you go through a crisis, the big banks get bigger and the little ones get wiped out, and you get rid of this. The market, if it had been allowed to exist and persist, you would have had more community banks, not just huge banks. I think there's an analogy to this also in medicine. The more the government got involved in medicine and one-party payment and all this, the less personal it is. When you have true markets, you have a doctor-patient relationship that could be preserved. So you lose the customer, local businessman as you get to this complication by governments getting these bubbles build up, and then they burst, and then they have to come in and rescue them, and the assets are bought up by big banks. It seems like there's always somebody there to pick up the pieces, and I believe it hurts the customers.
You're running commercials, at least you did last week here in Iowa, on the life issue. And I wondered, because people have wondered about, you've been a physician, you've delivered many, many babies, and you have a nuanced position on the abortion issue. What is it?
Well, I don't know what you mean by nuanced. I have a position on I'm right to life, and I believe that a human fetus is alive and it's human, and to kill it is an act of aggression. And therefore, those states that believe that there should be laws against aggression and killing should be able to write their laws, and you should not ever be able to repeal them at the federal level. Texas had a law against abortion, and Roe versus Wade reversed it. We allowed the court to write the law and make it a national law, so we deferred to the federal government to write a law, so they legalized abortion. And I'd much rather see that all acts of violence, murder, manslaughter, theft, be handled at the state level.
Thank you, Congressman Ron Paul, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
And the meeting is tomorrow
10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock at the Embassy Suites.
Right.
And it's a town meeting, and you can come and ask questions and get a chance to meet Congressman Ron Paul yourself.